Saturday night in cold ass West Virginia. We keep missing all the snow, but I tell you, I went out last night. I went out this morning. I was like, gee, man, it's Christmas, man. Either I'm getting old or it's cold, and I'm going to go with the it's cold thing. So I apologize. I was going to do this on Thursday night, and I don't know if y'all have that or not. I didn't feel like doing anything Thursday night. And I think I ended up laying on my couch just watching the Cowboys Lions, I think, or whatever that Thursday night game was, and passed out early. But hey, look, we got Mark on here tonight, and he's going to give us the lowdown on this. I know I listed this as a playthrough, but I got a feeling this might be more of a discussion. We'll get some insides on this game here. And Alan's along, Camp Sawyer's along because he's messed with Rebel Fury, and he wants to see my take on the game. And I will tell you this, I'm going to bring it up on my screen real quick here before we get Mark giving us some input here. But I played this little two-turner tonight, and you would have thought that, I looked at the setup, I read all the special rules, and because I don't quite understand the game designer's thought process of things, I scratched my head a little bit, and then I started playing. I thought to myself, there's no way Blue's going to win this thing. It's not with the way the Confederates were sitting, where Lee was at. McClellan sitting out there with almost only a handful of divisions sitting in front of him. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it ended up in a 2-point to 2-point tie, which is a Yankee victory in this scenario. And the special rules, I think you've got like nine of them in that scenario, and they applied perfectly, and it made the game work from either side. So I enjoyed that one real quick, and it had just a little bit of maneuver. As you can see, I was trying to get Longstreet around that bottom side right there, which I should probably zoom that stuff in. So
yeah, I see it.
I was trying to get Longstreet around that bottom side, and in the first attacks, I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? We're just going to roast Casey and anybody else that shows up. Well, you see Casey still sitting where Casey was when it started, and he sent 2 Confederate divisions blown to the box right off the bat. So I ended up having to push attacks with the Confederates just to try to get some victory points. And towards the end there, I think you're on the 17th, you say that the Second Corps has to drive into the north side of Fair Oaks, and Third Corps has to drive on Seven Pines, and got to take them back if they're Confederate occupied or just occupy them. And also on the AM turn, I think it was, the Yanks have to use defensive artillery fire on all attacks. So they ended up burning 3 of their 4 points. Confederates don't have any. And then they did have the one when the Third Corps came down to Seven Pines. They had 1 artillery left, and as you can see, it paid off because Kearney drove both of Whiting's units, or GW, both of Whiting's, I guess. So you got, I see Whiting A and Whiting B, and they're both part of Smith's division.
Yeah. So you have to understand, in the series, a piece is 2 brigade. If you have a 4 brigade unit, which is a lot of these guys were, you get 2 pieces. A piece is usually 2. A 3 brigade division could get 1 or 2 depending on how big the brigades are. So, okay. And so that's kind of the basic standard. So, and in fact, I think in 7 days, Longstreet's division has got six brigades in it. It's got 3 pieces. I mean, so it's, so broadly, these are 2 or 3 brigade pieces, again, depending on how big the 3 brigade, if it's a 3 brigade division, it depends on how big the division is overall. Sometimes they have an oversized brigade in there. That's the determination I have to make from the order of battle stuff. But if they got 4 brigades, they're going to get 2 pieces. And that's why there's an A and a B. It's
okay, I get it. Yeah, so I see Magruder's division, or Magruder has McClaw's A and B, so he was probably carrying 4.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I in 1862, it was so much different than as they started.
They were experiment. So in the beginning of the Civil War, primarily it's regiments that are formed into ad hoc brigades. That's kind of like where the standard was. Remember, this is 1862 now, and after they got so the armies were again, both armies had different philosophy, but broadly, brigade was the main piece that they would give around, and then they formed divisions thereafter, but they weren't like standardized divisions. Like I said, Longstreet had 6 brigades, and this guy might have 2 brigades, and so this guy might have 4 brigades. It was all different. It was just based on a lot of, how they organized and recruited them. And then the Confederates go into this corps system, and the Union goes into, at least the Army of the Potomac goes into a grand division. Like when you're at Fredericksburg, they got grand divisions, which are like corps, but eventually they disband that and they go into corps. And there are multiple reorganizations throughout the war. In fact, and I said this I don't know if you ever read the designer's notes of Rebel Fury, where I talk about the Corps integrity bonus. But and I want to say, with all due love for my good friend Richard Berg, he taught us all that in TSS, like there's this very defined pyramid structure, like this guy within range of this guy, must be in range of this guy, all that kind of stuff. And the reality was they broke those rules as many times as they kept them. So I give you the benefit if you get the organization right, you get a benefit, but you never get a penalty because they did it all the time.
Was it Hooker that reassembled everything into corps, got rid of the grand division scheme?
He, in the Army of the Potomac, remember there's other armies, but yes, in the Army of the Potomac, he got rid of the grand divisions. There was a little bit of a cleanup of the after Fredericksburg, and Burnside got relieved. Hooker, by the way, was he's one of those guys who might have been a much bigger element in the war if Chancellorsville had gone differently. He actually the 2 guys who basically there were 3 guys who basically affected the Army of the Potomac, right? The first guy of course was McClellan. After First Bull Run, I mean, he organized the army and the whole thing, and he had corps. By the way, he had a lot of corps. There was I guess the Army of the Potomac was 7 or 8 corps, and they found for a general that's too many. You can't talk to that many people. Jeff, you were in the military. 3 seems to be the limit of most commanders of people they can deal with, right? I got 3 guys. I tell them, you go left, you go right, you go center, whatever it is. 4 is already pushing it. Anything beyond 4, and you're overwhelmed as a commander, has been found from history. That's why the 3 has become like sort of the standard. I guess it's just sort of a recognition that's come out from centuries of this stuff. But Hooker, the biggest thing that Hooker did was besides getting rid of the grand divisions, he actually organized the Union cavalry into a separate arm from being distributed all over the place, which the Confederates got right from the very beginning. And he actually established, it's called the military, they call it the MIB, but it's the Military Information Bureau. But he created like an intelligence service. Those things lasted. And so Hooker was really set the army on the right path. And like I said, he stole a march on Lee at Chancellorsville, but then he lost it intact. Lee was probably again, everybody says this is the best general in history. It's always in any given war, it's the one-eyed man is king in the kingdom of the blind, right? So Lee was better than anybody else that he ran up against. He was better than Grant tactically, for sure, but Grant was just almost like operationally as good as Lee. And Lee was
and he was aggressive as hell. Grant was,
and look, when you play Army of the Potomac, the 1864 scenario, you realize that Grant lost every single battle, other than a couple of engagements. Grant lost every battle in the campaign except the last one. So that's, which is Five Forks, by the way.
Tactically, you're saying, yeah.
Tactically, they had a general rule, which is how the game plays, is that if you give the Confederates 12 hours, they're dug in. If you give them 24 hours, they're entrenched. That's basically was the rule. And so that can happen in this system. That's the standard that I use for how fast you can entrench, other than you can't entrench or get field works with the guys next to you. You can be in a ZOI, but you can't be in a ZOC. So they have to have a little bit of room.
Well, I think about, of course, everybody talks about, you'll hear people making the statement that somewhere along the line, the Union cavalry finally learned how to fight. But I always found it probably about when Lee started to shift from Chancellorsville to make his move north, when I guess Buford and a few others decided to, I guess they got a little aggressive trying to identify where the Rebs were still down in Virginia. And then, of course, the fighting they did at the first day at Gettysburg. And then I get really impressed when Sheridan took over. And I think it was Grant's statement was, who was it? Meade didn't really want him, wasn't real fond of him, but Grant said, if he says he's going to do something, he tends to do it. And I mean, the last, year and a half of the war, Sheridan just raised hell.
Yeah, you raise a very interesting point, Jeff. The thing that's interesting about Sheridan is that what happens is Sheridan basically totally hoses up the maneuver to Spotsylvania Courthouse. That's well documented, and Meade flips out on him for it. I mean, that's really what it is. And Sheridan was not one to take that. So they get in, and so Meade goes to Grant and says, I've had enough with this guy. He's in my hair. He's not listening to me, and that's probably pretty true. And he says if I let him go, he'd go, wipe out the Confederate cavalry. And Grant goes, "Did he just say that?" And that's you quoted him more or less just now. And Grant says, "Let him." And so when Sheridan runs off, and when you play the game, which is interesting, if you have Army of the Potomac, which starts on May 13th, and you're playing the campaign scenario, not the one map scenario that when you and I and Mo talked, you were just playing the one map scenario, I believe. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you play the campaign, what happens is it's identical to what you played, other than the supply wagons are on the map, but all of the cavalry is down on map, F, down near Richmond is where Sheridan is. He's at Hacksaw's Landing, which is more or less where Malvern Hill and the end of the 7 days battles is. And the Confederate cavalry is sort of, on the eastern side of Richmond, watching them. So when you start the campaign game, all the cavalry is way to hell, like off the map.
So you've got the traditional Sheridan doing his raid on Richmond to start off the campaign. That's what I'm.
Well, so Alan, let me qualify that. Okay.
Okay.
The answer is yes and no. Yes, in a way. So Sheridan launches his raid on the morning of May 9th in the morning. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. If you get Rebel Fury, what happens is the Spotsylvania Courthouse battle starts on May 8th. Yep. And so what happens in the special rule of the Rebel Fury scenario is Sheridan just disappears, and some of they just go away. They just they exit the map and they're out of the game. When you play, if you never bought Rebel Fury, you get Army of the Potomac. It starts on May 13th a.m. and the Sheridan's raid is over by May 12th. Right. Okay, so that's the day before, basically. So Sheridan's now down there. So if you're just going to play the beginning of Army of the Potomac scenario, you never see the cavalry. They're all gone. They're 40 miles away. If you play the campaign and you have all the maps out, Sheridan's down on G, and you got to bring him back up to hook up with the army. So he's on the map, but you got to, the cavalry's got to come back, and they don't actually re-hook up to Grant until about right at North Anna. Is right when the North Anna battle starts or is about to start. That's when Sheridan finally hooks back up with. Right. Now, going back to what you just said, if you play there is a combined extended campaign which allows you to take Rebel Fury and go from May 4th all the way to the end of the thing, one entire month. In that situation, what happens is a special rule that says on the 8th or the 9th, the Union can start the raid. If they don't start the raid on the 8th or 9th, it just doesn't happen. That's a choice. And there's a victory point implication both ways. If Sheridan's raid fails, the Confederates do well. So it's a gamble. You got to play it. Yeah. And you got to use resources to make it work, but that's a choice in the game. And if you don't do the raid, then the cavalry, just stays with that's gone. So that's how I handle it in the campaign. But when you get an Army of the Potomac, the raid is already over.
Gotcha.
So what, okay, because like I said, the other than a couple of Gettysburg first day and second day books that I've read, the last major read I did was Lee's Lieutenant. So I really don't know much about the internal functionality of the Army of the Potomac or anything else, just general stuff. what did Sheridan accomplish anything that was?
Hang on 1 second. Something is strange here. I'm in my son-in-law's office, and for some reason the plug I'm using is maybe it's
not working.
Well, it's not charging, and I'm starting to run out of power. Now, if I pull this plug, I think I screw all his stuff up, so we don't want to do that. So hang on. No, so you guys keep talking. I'm just going to plug in somewhere else, and I'll sit somewhere else if I have to. Here's another plug.
Yeah, I mean, just to add comment to that, one of the reasons why I'm here is
I'm back on power. That's good.
The whole campaign there, from Wilderness right down to Petersburg, the whole overland campaign is fascinating, because I've read a number of books, on that. And particularly, I'm moving in with Will Green's books now on Petersburg, and he kind of starts out where it ends there.
Oh, those are good books. Those are very good books.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So Petersburg, I take the campaign. So the famous Cold Harbor assault is June 3rd. I take the campaign to June 5th. So basically, the Army of the Potomac runs from May 5th to June 5th. June 5th begins another maneuver that'll be in a future volume.
Cool.
But that's another trade move that gets screwed up, because they could have taken Petersburg before Lee got down there, but they didn't.
Yeah. So, no, and I think that's where this plays in very nicely, is that whole maneuver, that whole bouncing, move to the left type of thing.
Mark, did you have any hand in, or by chance, I'm sure you probably played it, Lee versus Grant, the Wilderness from Victory Games?
Well, I'm in the history of the world, I'm the second person to play it.
I love that. That's what got me going down great campaigns. And I remember the scenario, the last scenario I played, it's been a couple of years, but I remember in that scenario I played from the start, the first thing that gets done is Sheridan on a 30 hex ride. Yeah.
And just to be clear, I've known Joel Bulkowski forever. I haven't seen him in a long time, but, at one time I saw him every single day. We were working at SPI together. When he brought that design to me, I played it. I said, I love this. And I published it. Remember, I was the publisher of the first GCACW game. But I want to, there's a moment here, if I could, can I talk about a historical thing for a moment?
By all means, go ahead.
Go for it.
So this is a very important dimension about our hobby and scale, right? Let me talk about that briefly. So when these guys went to West Point, there was a guy named Dennis Mahan, who was the professor, Dennis Mahan, who taught and there was only one class on military strategy. I remember West Point was an engineering school, but Dennis Mahan taught them, military history. And by the way, Dennis Mahan is Alfred Thayer Mahan's father, by the way, the famous naval strategist. So obviously a smart family. And Dennis Mahan taught them a guy named Jomini. Right, Jomini was a Napoleonic officer who wrote a book on strategy after the Napoleonic Wars that was published. It was almost like serialized, so between 1832 and 1836. But the 1836 is considered the definitive, version of it. And of course, it was written in German and French, mostly French, and it was translated into English. Now, there was another guy, you heard of Clausewitz, right? You've heard of him, obviously.
Yeah.
Clausewitz wrote in the same period of time, but he was not translated into English until 1870. So Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant, all those boys had never heard of Clausewitz or read him or taught him. But Jomini was taught to them by Dennis Thayer Mahan, Dennis Mahan, not the son. So in Jomini, and I quote it directly, and you have the thing there of Jeff, but I quote directly, the grand tactical level of combat, which is where a general runs the battle from, not anything that's tactical like the great game, Fearless Sacrifice or Rocket Chickamauga or TSS or any of the GBACW games. Those are all tactical games, because they're core and below. Even though you have an army commander, it's really core and below batteries, shooting distances and maneuvering regiments or even demi-brigades, all that kind of stuff. The grand tactical level, as defined by Jomini, as taught to General Grant and General Lee, was maneuver combinations prior to enduring a battle. That is the exact definition of. And so Rebel Fury, you are General Grant. You're not a corps commander. That's why there's no corps commanders in the game. There's corps, but you're General Grant or you're General Lee. And sometimes they give you like a wing commander, like a Jackson or somebody, but that's it. And so you're at that level of combat. So GCACW is at a 1 mile scale where it's theater maneuver, but the battles are pretty much, you just squish a bunch of corps up against each other and roll dice for, which corps hits who, right? In a tactical game, you're actually maneuvering the pieces, but at the Rebel Fury Army of the Potomac level, you're actually fighting the maneuvers during the battle, which is not in GCACW, and the theater maneuver stuff is not in GBACW, right? Because you're already there. You're already
right.
Or you're coming on as a reinforcement, or you're already on the field, or whatever it is. And so the last time I was thinking about this, very difficult. The last time there was a grand tactical game, Civil War game of any, when I was, did you guys ever hear a company called Battle Line?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So two friends of mine, Steve Peake and the late but amazing Craig S. Taylor, did 7 Days Battles, which was it was the last game I know that's at the scale of Rebel Fury Army of the Potomac. And they did the 7 Days Battles, which I played to death as a kid. And there hasn't been anything at that scale since then, pretty much. It's either been tactical or operational. So I really chose this scale for a very specific reason. And that's why everybody says, well, there's a lot of maneuver, because that's what the definition is of the grand tactical level. Maneuver combinations prior to enduring a battle. So people go, it's a lot of maneuver, because that's what's supposed to be there. Otherwise, it's not grand tactical.
Well, I definitely like it for like the 1862 stuff. And I will tell you, I haven't got into one of the big campaign ones yet. That's going to be my next step.
Oh, cool.
But I think that this system, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's going to provide a little better option to work McClellan a little more maneuvering in the 1862 instead of just the, once he decided.
You play a 2-player, yeah.
Yeah.
Once he decided
he was just always believing he was outnumbered, it was just back.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, if you saw it, so in Army of the Potomac, the main 7 Days Battle scenario is solitaire. It's a solitaire game because McClellan didn't want to fight. I mean, and so I can either write a ton of special rules making them fight, or just play it solitaire. You get to be Lee, which you'll like that, Jeff, because you get to be Lee, right? You don't have to worry about McClellan. And who doesn't want to be Robert E. Lee? I'm sorry, I like being Robert E. Lee too. But if you play a 2-player, remember Phil, when McClellan told the Army that he's pulling back, Phil Kearney went at him hard, saying, "What the hell are you doing? We could take what these guys are doing. Richmond's open." And so you can play the 2-player 7 Days Battle scenario. And when I've played it, remember the Union Army, if you look at the map that you got right on here, Jeff, you see that red. This, by the way, that's not on the final maps. You've got it. That's one of the the guys who built the, the Vassal module. That red
hex square.
Yeah, that was just so Charlie could register the Richmond map onto the map. So that's not on the final.
Are you telling me the Vassal is upgraded for this too?
It will be eventually, but we are literally. I just approved the final maps yesterday.
Right.
And the only thing I have to look at now is the final playbook, and this is going to China. Before Christmas, this will be in China. Now, they got a new year and all this bullshit, but this game is done. But
we just got some, Alan just enlightened me before you popped on. Looks like there's a little bigger delay in 3 Dog. What do you expect if this is going out to China here shortly? What do you expect the turnaround on this is in people's hands?
Here's the thing, Jeff. I'm responsible for it to the day they mail it to China. Now, between here and there, believe it or not, there is pirates stealing containers all over the world. So there's a shortage of containers, just to start off with. There's the Chinese New Year coming up, and I guess it's at the end of January, beginning of February. It's like Tet, the Tet offensive. Yeah. It's right in that period of time. So they take off for a month. Then you've got, I've had port strikes in Oakland and in LA, and so what the hell happened to after? But I guarantee that by WBC people will have it. That I can say because it's far enough in the future. But I talked to Gene Billingsley literally. Danny, I'm gonna answer your question in a minute. I just want to finish this thought. Gene Billingsley, who I talked to not yesterday, the day before, I talked to him on Thursday. He just got back from vacation. He feels like it should be the beginning of May. That's what he was saying, and I got that from Gene. But that's like if nothing, if nobody pisses on our parade, I don't know. But the game's done, so that's cool.
If the butterfly doesn't flap its wings.
Yeah. Now, Danny, what was Danny's question? I saw that. I don't know Danny personally, but he's a stupid question. Is there a third game? Yes. Okay. So, Danny, just be clear. I'm 71. Before I'm 80, I'm finishing the Civil War. That's all I can say. That's my personal plan. Now, all my good friends, Richard Berg and Roger McGowan and John Prado. I could go through. I've lost literally a dozen friends in the last 18 months, 2 years. Alan Emmerich.
John Prado.
I'm saying to myself, I got to finish it by 80. But if I croak at 74, I'm not going to finish. I want to be clear.
Prado says he makes one of my favorite games, the Army of the Heartland.
Oh yeah, that's a great game. Look, John and I go. I know all these guys. These are all my friends. And it sucks. But almost all my friends are dying have died in their mid to late 70s, and so I'm 71. We'll see how it goes.
I don't know.
Stay healthy, man. Stay healthy.
I work out. I don't know. I survived cancer once. Maybe the second time will get me. Who the hell knows?
So so we know this one's coming, and of course, you and Mo talk.
And the third, and Mo, I've already confirmed that the third volume will be. I wanted it to be a little bit more, but it will be Antietam and Gettysburg. That's guaranteed.
Oh, nice.
That's already in the books now. I've worked it out. I wanted to actually have Vicksburg in there, but they felt like that was just going to be too big a product and too much resource. There's a lot of it's a negotiation, but I'll get Vicksburg in on the fourth volume.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember you were talking about it. You were going.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited to do it, but we're going to do Gettysburg and Antietam next. But remember when I say that I'm doing Gettysburg and Antietam, it's not the Battle of Gettysburg. It's not the Battle of Antietam. The Antietam one includes Harper's Ferry, Turner's Gap, Compton Gap, and the Battle of Antietam and everything around it. And because of where this is all, we're going to be connecting the Antietam maps to the Gettysburg campaign maps. So it's going to be like 8 maps, maybe 9 that all hook together for that part of the world. So, it's going to be a lot of opportunities to see some cool. It's the maneuvers before and during a battle, right? Yeah. So Gettysburg may not happen at Gettysburg, but it could happen at Gettysburg.
So
it's an invasion of the North.
So
what's that, buddy?
It's an invasion of the North.
Yeah, I can see all of this on the eastern side, being able to join all.
Well, so just so you know, and hopefully Gene's not listening, but I'm going to hope I can negotiate first and second Bull Run in there. But I'll see if I can work that in there.
Well, okay. So when I first went after this, when you asked me if I wanted to sort of test play it, and I set it up, of course, I know that you like Terrible Swift Sword. I know you like 3 Days of Gettysburg. I remember you.
I was a play tester on Terrible Swift Sword. That's how old I am.
So I thought, those are the kind of things, and Alan's kind of the same way. I mean, we both venture in different things, but GBACW is the cat's meow for us, pretty much.
No arguments.
So when I set this thing up the first time, I was like, man, this is kind of, is the scale suit me? And then, of course, I told you when we had the meeting, Mo, that I thought operational right off the bat, and that I was totally wrong. So once you sort of got it into my brain that this was about the maneuver. It's funny because the first thing that comes to my brain when you said that was, I can't remember which battle it was, but the Yanks pretty much got, I guess, stalemated in Grant making a turn to head going more south. That just opened my brain to and I'm getting this as I touch this each time about the maneuverability in this game. Now I want to point out, because I want to bring this back up because I did learn a very good use of something in this game.
By the way, note that is a map. That is a road map that's a street map of Richmond, by the way.
That's a good look. I'm wondering if I'm ever going to get down there in one of these games.
Oh, you got to get down to Richmond. By the way, the Confederate White House and the Museum of the Confederacy are right next to each other. It's worth a visit.
Oh no, I've been down there physically. I'm just thinking in the game, I got to get into a scenario where I can get into Richmond from there. Now
I
I
have taken Richmond in a campaign game. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it can be done.
Detachments in this. Now this was only a 2-turner, and the game starts with in the movement phase for the CSA player off the bat. So you're not going to do any detachment stuff. But when it went into the second turn and I hit the detachment placement, I'm trying to think of a lot of games where I can put a unit out there, whether it's a skirmisher in another game or something like that, or an outpost or whatever it may be. But when I got to this detachment phase, it's like the light bulb went off in my head and said, oh, with the special rules, I know second corps is going to do this, and I know third corps is going to do this. Or I know that the Confederates are going to try to drive on Seven Pines because it wasn't taken yet, all right? Which they did take it, but I dropped those detachments, of course, within command range.
Well, and one detachment per.
Yeah, well, one for each side.
Right. One for each side, yes.
Yeah, so I dropped the Cobb's Georgians in there. And as I was looking, I said, okay, well, I need to stay in Johnson's command range. I can't go through a ZOI on the command path. I can't go through a zone of control.
And you have to be within 3 hexes of a friendly unit.
Right, yeah. And I almost got that confused with when you do a headquarters replacement. They can't be, They have to be closer to a friendly than an enemy. But I thought to myself, well, what can I do with that detachment? And I said, well, I know Second Corps now has to drive on Fair Oak, so let's put him right there where I placed him, which they would hit if they came down that road. They would hit that ZOC, and then of course I moved McClaw's in there too to give them some help, which paid off. And then I dropped the Union detachment over here as best I could, knowing that because I think Longstreet could go.
You do that radar thing on. You could do that radar thing.
Oh,
I can't tell where I can't tell where you're pointing. So obviously,
I'm sorry, I wasn't even doing anything.
No, that's okay. It's all good.
So I thought to myself, if I drop him there, and Longstreet attempts to bypass in that 6X range, he'll stop him.
Yeah.
So I think that I used the detachments with maneuver in mind. I thought to myself.
So let me talk about detachments are an interesting piece because they have 3 basic uses in the game. One, and this is the one that everybody figures out right away, it's a speed bump, right? I put this guy out to block a road, but because of the +4 modifier, they're usually going to get killed, and that's a victory point, right?
Right.
And in a game where you were tied 2-2, a victory point's significant, right? That guy gets killed, and it's 3-2 now, right? So that's what that's a thing. But a detachment is also a flying column. In other words, think about Buford at Gettysburg. I put Buford out as a detachment on Hare Ridge, and I've got to get somebody from the first, and you can stack with a detachment. So now imagine that Cutler, Wadsworth Division comes up, and Cutler gets into the same space with the detachment. The detachment now has held the ground for a regular unit to get there. So they're also a flying column, and they're also can be a rear guard if you're trying to get away. So those are the 3 basic uses of detachments, and in 2 of them, the detachment's likely to get killed and give up a victory point. But in the flying column, if you get the guy to reinforce him, as long as you hold the ground, the guy is okay. Although if you lose the ground, you will lose the detachment. So the detachment's always a 1 victory point bet on the table if you want to look at it like a Las Vegas thing, and whether it pays off or not, depends on the circumstances.
Well, I will tell you that Berdan chased Longstreet off.
Oh, nice. Well, it can happen. Yeah. Well, you got to remember something. 7 Pines. I added 7 Pines almost as a nice introductory scenario. 2 turns, you sit down, you get your game, you play it, and it's solitaire. You can play it solitaire, and how long did it take you to play it, Jeff?
I started playing this scenario tonight at 6, and I was wandering around the apartment, but I think I was done by 7:05.
Yeah, but so
maybe 35, 40 minutes at the most because I was walking back.
Yeah, right. So that's a great beginning. You get a brand new game, you set it up, and you play something in 40 minutes. That's a good day in my mind.
And I was actually I was enthused about it for it just being a 2-turner and thinking in my initial evaluation of the situation that there's no way for the Army of Potomac, and then the outcome and using the solo rules for the Union in this game and doing what you had on there, it brought some effect to what I was doing. And it was, if you could have seen me trying to move Second Corps down in there, and because I think your special rule says anybody coming from the north, and anybody projecting a zone of control on Fair Oaks, well, I put that detachment there right off the bat, and then the Confederates actually won the initiative for the second turn. So McLaws was able to move in there first. But I was trying to, weigh here. Okay, do I want to move Whiting into Seven Pines first, or I do want to get McLaws up there first? And I said, well, you know what? Let's get, because Third Corps couldn't, even with a extended march or whatever, they couldn't quite, with 8 moving points, they couldn't quite get down there far enough. So I said, all right, let's do McLaws first, and then we'll move Whiting into Seven Pines, which Whiting got chased out by Kearney anyhow. So, but
that's good thinking, though. It's good thinking, whether it works out or not. It's a game.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I will say this though, and I like you've got the balance rule about giving the Confederates 1 artillery point, ammunition point. I thought to myself, when I was done, I was like, that 1 point could have been huge.
Yeah, the big special rule in this is, and this goes back to the historical situation. You can get unit integrity, but you cannot get attack support. They just weren't. The Army wasn't up to that level of ability at this point in the war. They just didn't have it. It was a thrown together group of guys, and they couldn't coordinate very well, and that just comes across. And the like I said, the Confederates didn't even use their artillery historically. I mean, there's no. The only guns actually used were the that one field work. What is it? Casey. It's Casey, isn't it?
Casey's Redoubt.
Yeah. Casey had a couple. He had 4 or 5 guns, and they're the only artillery that in the entire battle was fired from that redoubt, and that was captured, by the way. But that's it. I mean, it's just not. They hadn't. It's early days, right? This crowd had never really been together. It's an ad hoc army. Joe Johnson was very secretive about his instructions, and he didn't tell anybody what he wanted them to do. So there was total confusion.
Where did Joe get wounded at?
Here. I mean,
right here.
Physically, he got hit somewhere near Fair Oaks. Remember, Fair Oaks is a railroad station. That's why it's called Fair Oaks. So, I
wanted to ask you that too, because I'm looking at the map here, and I see a lot of the structures have when you're looking at this game. If I'm just looking at the map and I'm not looking at rules, how, just so anybody else,
the play tester, the proofreaders asked the same question, and the answer is, the labels. Remember, you got a lot of things going on. If you put the label right on top of the thing, you won't see the roads.
Right.
So, but the hex numbers are correct. It is a railroad station, and that's why it's below the actual label. Exactly.
Right, so that's Fair Oaks, and
Seven Pines is not the woods, but the road intersection. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
It's correct. The hexagons in the game are correct. That's all I can tell you. The artist has to put the labels so that you can still see the important stuff.
I'm a GIS mapper. That's what I do for a living.
Yeah,
and I know these things, but it's. I wanted to just bounce a couple of rules for some of the future players and guys have already played it. So and I think Mo and I had a big talk about it. I can't remember if we talked with you about it. So one of the things that I find that's really interesting, that I get how command, it's not like they had field radios, and I guess the land telegraph lines came into play mostly, I think, for the Union later on.
Near the very end of the war, they started figuring out field phones a little bit.
Okay,
little bit, but not much.
So issuing orders out to commands, messengers, or unless you had flag stations in maybe a local battlefield that could.
No, flag stations were observation posts. They didn't use flags really in battles.
So when you've got units, and this is actually a good scenario to look at this at. You've got, as a matter of fact, let me do this.
Sure.
Oh yeah, here we go.
What are you starting a fresh one?
Yeah, just so see the initial deployments. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. There's Joe, Big Joe. All right. And it's funny too, because it didn't really hit me until Mo and I were talking about it with you. And I read the rule. I think I grasped it right before we had the chit chat with you. So all of these, and I started thinking about this with movement. Says, man, I can just, with the, so to speak, unlimited amount of movement, to an extent, where units can keep moving, till they hit a zone of influence or zone of control, then they're stuck. Or one side passes, you roll your dice, and that's how many moves you got left. Okay. Other than that, it's, in a sense, it's kind of just move. And then I thought to myself, well, that just seems like I can do whatever I want. But that's not necessarily true. And I learned that once a unit is in the command radius of a leader, he stays in the command radius of a leader.
Always.
And if he's outside the command radius of a leader and he moves, he's got to move towards the command radius. And then once he's in there, he has to stay. Now, I think you had a scenario exception in the first scenario that I think you said carried over from Rebel Fury, where the Union extended march, they could actually go away as long as they were headed back towards.
Well, no, wait. So, the exception, which of course will be, they've tried to, my lovely friends who will look for any nuance they could try to cheat, not cheat, they get advantage from. But, the roads don't always, the hard rule is you always have to move closer to your commander if you're at a command, right? That's the simple rule. But sometimes, the road goes like that, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Well, so all the exception says is if you're on road march, as long as at the end of the march you're closer than where you started, there could be a space or two where you're, the fucking roads are all over the place. I couldn't. Sure. It would just. I didn't want stupid things to happen because once they're on the road, if you were in the Army. If you're on the road and they told you to go down the road, you're not going to go. Oh, well, you can do something dumb. You can stay on the goddamn road, right? I mean, it's just. So I just tried to bring some,
Well, it
sense to that rule, but that's not, that exception is just in the sense you are moving closer, but there could be a moment during the march where you're technically not closer. But again,
so let's take the Sheridan thing you were talking about with Sheridan. So is it pretty much set in stone that, like in that, okay, if Sheridan's on a raid, is it pretty much set in stone that if he's going to move, he's got to start moving back towards Green?
No, there's in the campaign game, there is a Sheridan, there's cavalry HQs.
Okay.
And the cavalry HQ could only control cavalry. And now a regular HQ control anybody, but a cavalry HQ can only control cavalry. So you can, as your guys advance, you move the HQ down with the guys. So they can't run like the whole map. No matter what happens, they can't run the map in like one turn.
Mark, explain how, because I haven't got to that yet. Multiple headquarters in a game, and only one is active at a time.
Only for that instant. In other words, when you're saying, I'm moving this guy, remember, I'm moving one piece.
Right.
So when I say I'm using this as my active HQ, that could change every move.
Okay, so it can fluctuate during the same movement phase. As long as the units are executing towards the headquarters, towards the leader,
or away from the leader, as long as they're within his zone, his zone, his range.
Okay. Because I guess I was a little caught up in the, you've got one leader active, but now I get it. So it doesn't matter where on the battlefield, if you activate it, there's got to be a leader, whether he's out of that command radius or whether he's in it. There's got to be a leader.
If you look at the again going to the Rebel Fury scenario, if you look at Wilderness. There is a Confederate cavalry unit between Union Second Corps and Fredericksburg. And he is definitely outside of Lee's command range. Now, if you never move the guy, he can just sit there on the road, which is what you should do. Mm-hmm. But if you ever move him, he's got to close on Lee. He can't go doing something, raiding the wagons or doing some bullshit.
All right. So in those off the wall march, like I would think about Stewart's flank march, and you would have a leader.
There's Stewart. Stewart's in the game.
Stewart's a leader.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, what happens in the campaign game, I can't sit at I'm like sitting on a couch. I apologize, but it's the only plug that works, so I have to have power for this thing. When you launch Sheridan's raid, the Confederates get Stewart. I mean, you get a Stewart HQ, and so now you can maneuver part of your Confederate cavalry away from Lee to go chase Sheridan.
Okay.
And by the way, go down towards Richmond for a second.
All right.
Just as one of those. So if you look, blow up I'm looking for the left edge, blow it up just so you can see it more. You can read it. Go up a little bit more, get more. And now go left. But stop. Do you if you follow that road, do you see Old Yellow Tavern?
Old Yellow Tavern. Isn't that where?
That's where Stuart got it.
That's where Stuart got killed. So Stuart was there when he died. That's how close he was to Richmond when he got killed.
Yeah.
Where's it?
Just follow that the Richmond Fredericksburg Railroad out to the west. It's somewhere over there.
I can't read the names, but it's got to be over there.
It's right over there. If you blow it up more, we can see it, Jeff. But other than that, it's definitely there.
I want to say it's by that lake.
Oh, there it is. I see it. So you see where there it is. That's it. So that's where Stuart was when he got shot, and they were able to take the body back. He died. Stuart technically died in Richmond. He was badly wounded, and they were able to get him back to Richmond, and he died in actual Richmond.
I love these maps, man. It's got the right mix of everything on here. So,
by the way, all those houses are right off the census. Now go to the. Well, let's just use even that's not the real direct. Go east. And go. Oh, you don't have the 7 days up yet, but you just go up a little bit. Where like the front lines are. So you see where the Union is.
Mm-hmm.
Count the number of hexes between one of those Union units in Richmond. Just how many hexes is it?
You need a line of sight.
It's probably what 10, 15, maybe. I'm guessing.
Maybe
so
at most.
14
I don't think it's even that much.
And 12. Let's see. Oh, the map numbers change. So
no, just count the number of hexes. Just look at the hexes.
Let's see. Let me zoom down a little bit here. All right, let's go right here.
What is it? That I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, down to the edge of Richmond. How many hexes is it?
14.
You went down
too far. Wow, maybe 17 or 18.
It doesn't. That sounds even high. No, I could say it can't be that high. 1, 2.
Oh, if I go straight
4,
forward,
5, 6, 7. I count 10 hexes about right.
Yeah.
You got an LS
where Casey's Redoubt was. Yeah, I mean 1, 2.
So that's what I'm saying. So
Jeff.
At the beginning of the 7 days, when McClellan retreats and Lee has moved his army off north of the Chickahominy, the Union is 5 miles from Richmond with most of their army. 5 miles.
Yep.
And when Kearney said we could take Richmond, so when you play the 2-player 7 days battle scenario, most of the time Richmond falls.
Just because you've got the bird's eye view and you can maneuver and do a lot more than McClellan did.
Well, he didn't do anything. He ran away.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark, would you mind with Mo being down, probably not going to be around for a little while? Would you mind if I shared this vassal with Alan here so he and I can?
Yeah, sure. Be happy to. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, the game's done. I'm happy. Just know that any mistakes you find, game. By the way, I will say one thing I'm very impressed by, so I'll say it out loud. GMT has put in a proofreading process that did not exist even a year ago since Kai took things over. I got to tell you, there are guys who went over every single hex of every single map and looked at every spelling, and it was so painful to me. But I'm glad they did it. But it was absolutely fucking painful. I'm sorry.
I can imagine. I mean, it's kind of like, oh my God, how do we miss all of this?
Well, I got one I need you to verify for me because I was.
Yeah, go ahead. But also remember, you have an earlier version of everything.
Yeah, I'm thinking you probably. It says here it's about these guys crossing the river.
Yeah.
But then it says to refer to Special Rule 5, but Special Rule 5 talks about blown units as eliminated.
Yeah, that was fixed. I have a later. Give me 1 second.
Oh. It's always good to get the knowledge base, on their design because, like I said, I
are we talking about is this a Fair Oaks question?
Yeah, that was Fair Oaks. Yeah.
Give me a sec. So what I'm looking at, this is one short of. This is the final that they're looking at for the. There are a few corrections, but I'm looking at almost the final version. Okay, so which special rule did you see that in, buddy?
So it's on mine. Special Rule number 7 says no forces except for those in Special Rule number 5 may cross a river, bridge, or ford. and then you refer back to Special Rule 5, and it talks about blown units are
Yeah,
considered.
that reference that's not there.
Okay.
That reference is incorrect, and it's not in the final rules.
Because I couldn't decide who can't.
No,
and then I said, well, I'll just play off your solo rules where second and third core are going to move.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't have to say that, so that's good.
All right, so for those of you that have not, so the movement's pretty simple. If you've got units that you want to get some extended move out of them, there is a rule for extended move. As long as you stay on a road, you don't hit a ZOI, you don't hit a ZOC, and you can double your movement. I know Mark has some special rules in one of the scenarios where it was the first one I played, matter of fact, where the Yanks got to move like double almost, but it made sense. So you do have extended march. You have two sides of a unit in this game, and I couldn't believe how simple it was. I will say this: reading the rules in this thing is just, it couldn't be any easier. Everything just sort of follows suit. But your units are very simple. You've got we'll call this their mobile side, their maneuver side, and then you flip them over and they got their battle side. Now, how this works is you'll see the number 1, that's his movement. You flip him over and maneuver, he's got a maneuver of 4, and these are in hexes. Now, there are times in the game when this guy has to flip to his battle side. If he gets in the zone of influence of an enemy unit, he's going to flip to his battle side, and he's going to stop his movement. All right. Now, it doesn't mean he's done for the turn, because now he's going to have a movement of 1. If you want to move him again and you have movements, now you can move him into a zone of control. Once you move into a zone of control, you're done for that phase. There's no more movement for that phase for that guy. All right. Little different with detachments on the map. So if you try to move into detachments, don't have a zone of influence, they have a zone of control. So if a unit moves into that zone of control of a detachment, he flips to his battle formation side, and he's done for the phase. And if anything's going to happen, it's going to be an attack. You have mandatory attacks in this game, but those are under special circumstances. And you don't have, I'm pretty sure you have to attack everybody you're adjacent to. So, but don't think for 1 second that you're going to take a bunch of units and surround somebody, and all 3 of those units are going to combine together in that attack. It's not going to happen. You're going to attack with 1 unit that might get support by a unit that's next to him if he's in division or core or whatever, depending on what special rules in the scenario. And that's usually just going to be, they're going to get a +1. All right. You'll notice that Magruder, McClaw's A unit, he has a star. He's a quality force. He's going to get a +1 for that, for having his, what do we call it in this one? What's the core or unit quality? What do you call it?
It's called division core integrity.
Okay. All right. And you also have, if they're within the command radius of the leader, and this leader's on it, you won't see it on his. I don't think you'll see it on his. Yeah, not on his maneuver side.
No, it's only on his battle side.
If he's within that command radius of
in this scenario, he's in his battle side the whole scenario.
Yeah, this one here doesn't even move. Yeah. But you'll get 1 for that star too. So it's unlike a lot of other games where we start taking strength points and we divide this and we divide that, and then we add these benefits. What Mark has done, and a lot of you guys that like to play games that move right along and you're not having to do calculus, you got it right here, because you just go right down the list. Granted, unless he has special rules, like in this scenario here, there is no attacker support because it was early in the war, as he was saying earlier, and their coordination abilities weren't that great. But you literally go right down this list, starting with 1 for each battle rating with each unit, whether you're attacker or defender. You start with 1, and then you're going to add your modifiers to their battle rating. There's not going to be any odds. What you're going to do is you're going to go over to this chart over here. Each side's going to roll. My mouse has disappeared. Each side is going to roll on this chart over here, and you will take whatever the result is for the attacking force, and then whatever the result is of the defending force, and you go down to this table right here, which I know a lot of people are looking at and saying, well, there's nothing there. There's no 6-sided die roll and a bunch of different possibilities. You'd be amazed at what these results will create on this battlefield. As I said earlier, I had an entire brigade from Longstreet attack a detachment. All right. I think it was like 6-2 was the battle rating numbers. And just because of the terrible roll by Longstreet and the great roll by that detachment chased Longstreet off, made him retreat. And in fact, he ended up He only had to retreat 2 because he hit defensible terrain on his retreat. So, yeah, there's your charts, guys, for this game right there. That's it. And then you've got your terrain chart, which is, it can't be any easier. You want to see if something has a combat effect, which your combat effect is going to be defensible terrain, plain and simple. There's no, oh, I'm going to get a +5 for woods. Oh, I'm going to get a +7 for behind. It's not. All right. Your defensible terrain, you go back to your chart. And if the defender's terrain, you're going to choose the best. Okay. So if he's in defensible terrain or field works, he's going to get 3 added to his battle rating. If he's in an entrenchment and he's attacked from the frontal hex side of an entrenchment, he's going to get a 5. And you'd be amazed, Casey's readout, they held up 3 attacks against them. And I realized after the first 2, I probably shouldn't have done the third one because it was almost impossible. No artillery for the Confederates. So you can see those numbers when you have artillery, they get big and the defender's always going to get the benefit. And you get your leadership, you're going to get your troop quality. You will get attack support in a lot of the other scenarios. You'll get corps and division integrity and how. Now, this is what's really cool. I really like this. Okay. So attack support, let me find, all right, let's pull this guy down here. Let's pull McClaw's A and McClaw's B. All right. Now, if this McClaw's unit is attacking here, all right, I think I got these right. Yeah. And he has his sister unit in this particular case, is McClaw's B. He is adjacent to him and he's adjacent. So these 2 are adjacent to each other and they're both adjacent to the unit being attacked. You're going to get attack support, all right, which is another plus. If this unit is sitting back here and McClaw's is attacking Slocum, he's not going to get the attack support because this unit is sitting back here, but he is going to get division or corps integrity. So he's going to get a +1 for that. So the division corps integrity, this guy does not have to be adjacent. He's just got to be adjacent to the unit that's doing the attacking. But that's so simple to look at when you're trying to figure out. You know, you're not thinking about odds. Get those 2 numbers, go through your battle rating summary, roll your dice on the tactical position determination, which where have I heard that before in a game? The tactical position. There's another game I played.
I'm sure, look, there's been so many war games. Yeah. I got to believe somebody came up with that term somewhere.
I don't know what OCS gets in my head, but it
was I'm thinking Battles of the American Revolution too, with those tactical chits. Same type of concept there.
Oh yeah, where you pull, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I got the term tactical position. I guarantee you, Dunnigan used it 100 years ago. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Well, there was a game called. It's a very rare game, but it was called Lost Battles, which was a tactical East Front game that had a lot of terminology. I think got stuck in my head 100 years ago.
I like that philosophy. But I think it's an approach that was. I don't think it was used in newer stuff. I don't think it's been used enough. But it sort of simplifies. I get it because I mean that's exactly what all of this. When you do all these numbers, that's a good term to use for it, and it works. But man, you get down here to this results table, and you'll notice he's got special icons. Is this by chance? Is this changing in the final edition, or is that okay?
No, this chart. Well, hang on one second.
Look, he's getting his steps in because of me.
I think this is core, Jeff. This looks familiar from Rebel Fury.
So
I think it is, Alan.
The chart you have there is literally from Rebel Fury. It even says Rebel Fury on it, if I believe.
Yeah,
I don't know. I gotta see if I can get this. So this is the Army of Potomac. So it's the same exact table, but we use color this time.
Let me hold on.
Yeah, can you flip them over? There you go, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
So it's the same exact table, not one change, but the color makes it a lot easier to see.
Yeah. Yep. Nice.
And what we did though, but you see the bottom chart,
right?
Yeah.
What we did do is you got the color. So, but I happen to have a couple of very close friends who are colorblind, so we kept the icons. So if you can't see the color, you could still read the icons of which to look in the key. You see the key has both the color and an icon.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're colorblind, you can still read the chart.
Okay. That's even better. That's even better. So, okay. So if you guys at the bottom, you can see where he explains those icons, and you'd be amazed at what can happen in the game with those that little cross, the double cross. And I think one of the cooler, I've not hit breakthrough very often, but I'll tell you one of the cool ones in this one, and I want to talk about that, is the counterattack. So
that's fun.
you get a roll and you end up with a counterattack result. So you just had some rebs. Uh-oh, we lost him.
We lost him.
He'll be back.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. He'll be back on.
I gotta flip everything back on here. Hold on a second. There we go.
There you go. There you go.
So if you get, look, we done talked him out. He passed out and lost his connection.
He was on the couch, so he's taking a nap, I guess, like I was last night.
I want to make sure before I go down so he gets back on so he can balance it out.
Yeah.
I hope he didn't. Oh, I wonder if he lost
internet,
because he was saying he was having a power issue.
Oh,
there he is.
Oh, here he comes. Here he comes.
What kind of tactic was that?
I think that was a 71-year-old man working a computer is what that
was. All right. So we're done. Okay. So you get a counterattack result in this game. So let's say you just had an attack where the attacker had his battle rating was 6 and the defender's battle rating was 4. And you're thinking to yourself, that's not too shabby. Well, it's not. It just depends on how your dice are rolled, which I think is great for any game. Dice should affect it. All of a sudden you get a counterattack result. Well, guess what? Now the table just get flipped and you're going to keep the same numbers with one exception. That 6 that was attacking that 4, it's now going to get turned around. That 4 is going to attack that 6, but that 4 is going to get a +3. So he's gained some momentum. He's gained a little confidence. So now he's attacking at 7-6, where he was just defending it at a 6-4. And believe me, it'll stun you. When I think of this, the one rule in OCS though, I think was the surprise roll in OCS, where you got an ass kick and you're getting ready to hand out to something. You roll a terrible surprise roll, followed up by a 6 on the colored dice, and the counterattack in this one here is pretty. It can be pretty devastating on the other end. Now, Mark, what I don't know that I've not done, and maybe you could just give a sort of a rundown, is breakthrough. What happens with breakthrough?
Okay, so where you get a breakthrough, well, first of all, let's talk about the conditions under which you get a breakthrough. So what happens is, and this is more something that happens in the campaign than it happens in a battle, just to be clear. You have a unit who is like, an extended supply, which means they don't have small arms, and they don't have ready access to small arms and artillery ammunition. Or they're a unit that's got 2 casualty markers on it, which happens in the campaign game, not in the battles per se, because they're shorter. You get column shifts. So whenever you have a significant advantage hits a significant disadvantage, right? So the guy is really in bad shape and you hit him, then you get a breakthrough. And a breakthrough, basically, the guy who was being attacked is eliminated. So you don't even worry about him being blown. He's dead. And by the way, just to be clear, the Civil War was very bloody, but not once guys tried to surrender. So a lot of results where a unit's eliminated, they're not dead, they surrendered. They're captured. That was a common result, especially if you took an entrenchment. I'll come back to Joe. The discussion in current issue 38, which was the last issue, has ceased and remaining goods are being sold. Is that true? I mean, Joe Perret, you just posted it. I'm just reading it, but oh no, don't tell me that went away. What happened here?
Let's see. Let's see. There's the next.
Well, let me answer your question. Right. We'll come back to that in a moment. I saw that comment, and I'll answer it. It's a good question, and I'm going to do something about that in a second. But I want to go back to your question. So what happened? And then in a breakthrough, one of the units that's adjacent to the guy that was eliminated becomes blown. So he just goes away also. So you basically make a hole. Right. Because one of the big rules, by the way, Jeff, what's been making very heartening is you clearly understand all the rules without looking at the rules, which is, I think it's cool because you know how to play.
And I just picked it back up after a couple weeks not touching. I'm like, I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be, I got to refresh before tonight. And I played that game. I was like, are you kidding me? This stuff just jumped right back in my head real quick.
Well, that's what I was going for. But
well done.
So anyway, so that's Alan. That's what so you get breakthroughs, but usually only when one guy is. You have to be below a 4. You have to get down to the 3 columns. So something has to kick you below. So if you get a guy in the open, right, and you have a lot of advantages, that's when you're going to get a breakthrough result. Now, in the campaign game, there's more opportunities, but if a guy's in the clear and he's not in any defensible terrain, that's when you're gonna see that thing happen, where you can really knock the guy out. And a very important rule, which I know Jeff knows, is after you win, if the guy retreats, you can only advance if you're not in another zone of control. So even though if you're hitting a line and you knock one guy back, well, if there's other zones of control, you're not going into that hole. So the breakthrough is in essence making a big enough hole sometimes that you can get through in a pursuit, and that's what a breakthrough is. So going back to the question. So Jeff, you have this because this is the article from C3I, but you see this table here,
right?
So I have a very good friend named Dave Casper, and Dave. Oh, yeah, Dave Casper is a no kidding world-class physicist.
Yeah.
David is a world-class physicist. He works in CERN on like dark matter or shit. I don't even know what he does. He's so fucking smart. Anyway, he built that table, and what I like about and that table is included in Army of the Potomac in the article, which was in C3I 38, which is going back to the earlier question about where this stuff is. So that article, my Cleo's Corner at number 38, is fully included in Army of the Potomac. So if you didn't get it, you're still going to get it with the game. And he built this table, and it'll tell you any combination of attacker tactical to defender tactical gives you the probability of success, which is really nice. So, for instance, so you were asking a question about a breakthrough. So let's say you have a 10 versus a 2, right? So according to this chart, well, you have a 95% probability of success. And you would have that's the chance of winning the battle. The breakthrough would be probably about 10% chance of a breakthrough. About that.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
You gave Mo and I a good rundown on that chart. I don't know if I've ever seen that in a game.
Well, again, it took a guy who's a world-class PhD physicist to build it, so I don't even want to go. I mean. You know that old Beatles song, "With a Little Help from My Friends." You know,
exactly.
I know what I tell you. One of these days, I so want to have a discussion with you about the SPI days and stuff because that's my first go round. I mean, I think the first game I bought with my own money was Grenadier.
It's a good game. Yeah.
And then the first game that I just fell in love with that I had to have and I got it for Christmas was Terrible Swift Sword. And now I think I have 4 copies of it. It's granted it doesn't touch Three Dog or the new stuff, but that you can't let go of that game. It's just
I gotta be honest with you. You could like another game better, but it was just a monument. I mean, I played that thing. Remember, I play tested it. A good friend of mine, his name is Gary Gonzalez, but he was always by the Gons. So Gons and I came into New York during that summer, and we were in college at the time, and we played the Pickett's Charge scenario for Berg, and that was just I don't even remember which side I was, but I remember we got to shoot artillery for a while, and then one of us charged across the field and got mangled. It was just great. It came out about right,
Well, who was it? Ross was talking about he wants to play some of the old GBAC, and we were talking about that the other night about Terrible Swift Sword. I said, get ready for this. You will have a lot of units eliminated because of the 1 strength point loss, and a lot of the regiments are only 3s and 2s, and I think maybe and they fixed that with GBA, the new GBACW, where they made it 50-man increments, and that spread the game.
But it's just a matter of at some point. Every game has a level of granularity, right? That's all there is to it. And a 1 strength point regiment, which means it was, I don't know, was that like 100 guys or something like that?
In Terrible Swift Sword,
I mean, if any more of the 100 guys are killed, I mean, yeah, maybe the unit's running around somewhere, but they ain't doing much. I mean, they're done. So it's just a matter of what level of granularity you're going to go down to. So ultimately, you can go down to the individual man, I guess. But this, you got to put a boundary on it. Let an ACW game go. Heck,
hell no, Nord, not willingly.
Yeah. The one thing with Terrible Sword, I have to say, is the one game we played the campaign. This was back, teenage years. Played the full campaign, let it stay up for about, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I can't remember now, but we played the heck out of that for those weekends. I mean, it was great.
I had a guy that that really got me into this. I think I was 7th or 8th grade. A guy my age lived right across the street from me, and then a guy on the next street over, almost directly across the street from me. One of them was a Wellington's Victory nut, and the other one was a Terrible Swiss Sword nut. And that's what, of course, obviously TSS stuck with me. I still keep 2 copies of Wellington's Victory around here. I won't pull it out. It's a lot to deal with, but it's still, in my opinion, you got all this Labatai stuff going on and all these things. Terry Daugherty, his new system is really, really phenomenal. I got a chance, to just play that first one he did, and I can't wait to see the other ones. But if you told me, all right, Jeff, go in your closet there and pull out a Napoleonic tactical game and play it, you got 2 choices: Labatai with its 50 million games, or Wellington's Victory, or Ney versus or whatever the crossroad one, Ney versus Wellington. I'm going to play Wellington's Victory before I play Labatai because it's just something I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah, I have to say that when I did this series, my goal was to, one, be very focused on this grand tactical level, which hasn't been done for decades, by the way. Mm-hmm. And 2, I want there to be all the detail that's required, but I also don't want to, I happen to love Battles of the Age of Reason, which is like almost like it's like you're studying for a law exam half the time. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want that. I just wanted to be able to play a game, finish it, and feel like I got the full historical experience. And I have to say that I feel very good about the system. Is simple but not simple-minded. It's got a lot of choices. It's got all the right choices for General Grant. It's not a tactical game. It's not a campaign maneuver game. It is a grand tactical game. And by being very specific about what I was trying to do, I think I've accomplished what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things to add to that, the one thing I found out, particularly with Rebel Fury, because like I said, I haven't played this one yet, but is how much the maneuver piece of it is more critical than the combat piece of it. Particularly like in the Wilderness. That's the one I've really kind of played, not to death.
Good one to play. It's my favorite. It's four turns.
Yeah, exactly. And I found it's like, I first time I played it was like, okay, I'll just bang at it like it's GBACW, and it's like, no, this is the biggest failure ever.
Well, again, I was saying, and by the way, just as again, I go back to no shade on. I was the first publisher of GCACW, so I'm a big fan, and I have most of them. I actually have divested myself of the older ones. I kept the newer ones, but that's beside the point. I just didn't have any more room. But if you look at the Wilderness at the GCACW level, and I watched it, it was the tournament scenario for at the World Board Gaming Championship. The Wilderness was the tournament scenario this year. Yeah. So I watched a bunch of people playing it, and I noticed that the Wilderness, it's an operational maneuver game. So you got all the basic maneuver, but when they come in contact, the Wilderness is, I think it's like 4 by 5 hexes on the map. So the cores are, like they are. They're all mashed up against each other. There is no more maneuvering once you get to the Wilderness, right? It was just dice rolling and, guys getting hurt and all that kind of jazz. Yeah. But in the Wilderness at the Grand Tactical level, where Grant is, he's still maneuvering guys around in that space, because now the space is, 12 by 12. There's a section of the map that you can actually maneuver and get between people and do things, which is what Grant saw. That's more of what I think I want. That's what I was looking for. That experience.
Didn't Grant pretty much? Okay, well, we know he wanted to attack at the Wilderness, but didn't he pretty much tell? Was it Warren? I don't know. Maybe they were waiting on 2 core to show up, but the second one hadn't got in, and he told Warren, "You get in the attack anyhow." at the
Yeah,
wilderness.
so the wilderness. We could talk about. I love the wilderness. So the wilderness. Grant didn't expect to get into a battle in the wilderness.
Mhm.
That was not, because remember, Lee is off to the west, more or less,
Right.
down the river, and he's turning his right flank, and his army is twice the size of Lee's, literally, in physical size, and Grant hadn't dealt with Lee yet. This is the first time the two of them are encountering each other, and Lee knew this ground intimately because of Chancellorsville and Mines Run. I mean, he knew this ground, and Grant didn't really know this ground that well. Neither did Meade. Should have known it better. And you had a really weird. The command structure was very vertical. In other words, Grant was not in charge of the Army of the Potomac, and Meade was not in charge of the Ninth Corps at this point. Because the Ninth Corps, because of the seniority thing, Meade, Burnside's reporting directly to Grant. So there's a lot of time delays and everything. And so what ends up happening is when Lee gets information that they're crossing the river, he immediately launches an attack, which was not in Grant's plan. But then Grant said, "Oh," and then they said, "Fine, let's fight." And so you're trying to get a bunch of guys on the fly to do a bunch of stuff, and they're in the woods, and there's shitty communication, and it's just a mess. And Sheridan had totally blown the reconnaissance part of it. In other words, there should have been cavalry guys down all those roads looking to see the Confederates were coming into the flank, and there was nobody there. It was a total intelligence failure. So I have it well handled in the scenario that you played. Hopefully, Alan, you see all of that.
It is, and the thing that got me is once I got away from traditional like GB, GC, ACW, whatever, and got into the mindset of, wait a minute, this is more maneuverability. And for whatever reason, a bell went off. I don't know whether it was playing solo because I played it with somebody too, and we were doing the same thing. But then it struck me, I'm like, no, this is like a go game. This is not like chess. I've got to get around and maneuver around them and pin him in a position where he's got to attack me. And that's so then when I played it that way, I was like, oh my, that kind of lit it up. I still have issues with the combat. I'm still working that out, but the whole thing on maneuverability really clicked. I'm like, oh, this is perfect because this is showing the maneuverability. And that's what I think with Army of Potomac, picking the 64 campaign, the full campaign, I just looks very interesting to me in terms of seeing that, fully played out where you can bounce around units and play it like a go strategy.
You say, this probably really struck me playing this two-turn scenario. I didn't need to attack Casey. I could have just left him sitting right there and figured out how to, come through the between that gap, drive that unit out that was above him, and move to Seven Pines and go on. I didn't need so I sacrificed 2 blown units that I didn't need to.
Remember the famous phrase that Bedford Forrest said, and Grant said the same thing in different ways. You want to get there firstest with the mostest. The guy who's on the ground. Remember, how does Gettysburg? You've all played a Gettysburg game. Clearly, you own 4 copies of TSS, right? The cavalry. Remember the scale difference, but the cavalry gets to Hare Ridge before the Confederates do.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Buford is not attacking the Confederates. The Confederates are attacking Buford. Davis and Heth's Corps is attacking the Union cavalry, who are like, I don't say dug in, but they're in a good position, but they can only hold on so long. And so what happens in Rebel Fury, which is the actual war, you have to plan on hitting a spot sometimes 2-3 times at a minimum for it to work for you mathematically. Right. Now, you could get good on the first die roll. You can get Missionary Ridge. As things go your way. But most of the time, you're going to hit that position 2 or 3 times. And what you're also going to find, and again, it's in the article, if you've got a straight line defense, right, you can only get one supported attack against their geometrically because, you can only get 2 guys against 1 guy in a straight line. Right. But now look at the mule shoe or any bump in the line. Now I can hit him from 3 sides. Now I can get 2 attacks in with support and artillery. That makes all the mathematical difference in the world.
Well, I'm still awestruck today that I didn't know it for years, that Buford only lost 127 men.
Yeah.
He had like some 3,800 horsemen on the field.
Yeah, but they were spread out. Yeah, but yeah, he had Devin and Gamble were more or less in front of the third corps. There was a couple of guys up near Oak Ridge, but they couldn't hold much. They were just mostly scouts.
That was when I went through because I know, Mark, I know you've done a lot of stuff with the military, and I remember when I went to the basic non-commissioned officers course in Fort Carson. That was it's funny because it was a study session in one of our classes, our leadership classes. And I remember our instructor, he was real intelligent. He had just joined the academy as an instructor. He was real thorough and intelligent about this stuff. And it shocked him when he mentioned Buford, and I knew what he was talking about, and just had a full 45-minute conversation instead of a class. But I don't know all the things. Like I say, I'm not very well versed on the northern side. I know that McClellan was a great builder of forces and a morale guy. I know that Grant was aggressive. He's going to fight. I know that him and Sherman both had issues in the early parts of the war, but they both turned out to be just studs as the war came to a close. I'm one of those people that believes Burnside didn't get more credit. I think you tossed Fredericksburg out the door, and I think Burnside, in my opinion, I thought he performed pretty well for the Army of the Potomac. I mean, did they give him independent command because nobody liked him, or because he was efficient?
The problem with Grant's failing is I don't think he always understood how long it took to get things to develop. In other words, he would say he tried to do a lot of attacks late in the day because he would say, I want you to attack by 10 o'clock. And it took them hours to organize. There's a lot of moving parts to these things, and there's no radios, and there's a lot of disorder going on out there. But literally, I've done this study. There aren't 25 successful big assaults in the Civil War period. That's how bad it is. Most assaults fail. Read the books. I mean, every time you read a book, it failed for this reason, failed for that reason. There's always a reason, but they all fail for some reason or another because they can't coordinate.
Yeah, it's always the other guy.
Something goes wrong, and I'm actually writing a historic and real history book on that topic, by the way. But when
do you have time for that? There's games that need to be finished.
I do, something. The problem I've got is not that I can't do more games, but the production cycle is. I mean, I finished Army of the Potomac more or less in August, but there's a lot of process to get a game of high quality. Get the game to GMT quality and get it to a printer and get it across the ocean and get it back from across the ocean. It's not that simple. I mean, when I was running Victory Games, I mean, I would take a disc, put it in my bag, and I get on it, and I get in my car and drive down to Baltimore and go to Avalon Hill, Monarch Avalon, and go into the typesetting shop. And, within 3 days, the game was on the press, I mean, I'm spoiled.
Miss those days.
Yeah, what killed American printing is, and why we're going to China even, is that when the magazine and the internet and all this other stuff came along, magazines, the era of magazines and newspapers took a major hit. Magazines in particular. There used to be 1 million magazines, but now they're all online. So if you're not printing all those magazines, there aren't printers to print magazines or printers, and so you don't have that soup to nuts printer that I grew up with is gone. They don't exist anymore. I mean, GMT had a hell of a time printing that Taiwan game because that's the one game they can print in China. They don't want to see that crap,
Oh, yeah. Good. I didn't think about that. Good point.
Yeah. So they had to print that one on other. I don't know the details, but one thing I'm positive, it did not get printed in China. So, I don't know where the hell it got printed. I didn't print it, but it got printed somewhere. But it wasn't printed in China. They don't give a shit about the American Civil War, so we're good.
Well, I will say this one thing. GMT. One of my favorite systems, obviously, coming out of GMT is East Front series. I love the East Front series.
You mean the Van Borey system?
Yeah, I love that.
Vance is a great guy.
I love GMT's I love a lot of companies' quality of what they put in the boxes, the material, and what the counters are made of, and that kind of stuff. But I just don't think I have a GMT game that I enjoy to play. That the counters are very nice, the maps are very nice. Most time the boxes are good enough to, I'm making my own trays to put in these boxes to get things sorted out better. But they do such a good job. You can never knock their quality. I mean, there's VUCA, Lock and Load. There's 2 or 3 of them out there, and MMP makes great games. A lot of people, including me, are not always fond of their maps, but I mean, they're not god awful. They're just a different flavor. But GMT they really do. And I mean, I'm only looking at the Vassal mod here. I do have Rebel Fury over there in the box. I think I opened it to look inside it, but you sent me this, and this is the only thing I played, and it's just so pleasant to look at. Just really good. Was it? You said it was Charter Killer.
Yeah, same guy who did the GC, does all the GCACW maps, does mine. And by the way, so just so you know, the sad history of Rebel Fury, it's in the game. I mentioned it. Rick Barber and I were old friends, and Rick was so I had hooked up with Rick at the beginning of the Rebel Fury thing, saying, "Look, Rick, I want you to be my map guy, and I'll get you the work." And he needed money, and I needed map research to move things along. So Rick and I were working hand in hand, and then he had the sad. He just passed away. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
And then
he told me that
Charlie Killer stepped in, but that didn't make my life easier.
I met him in Gettysburg.
But let's just say, whatever had happened to me, Rick took it a lot worse than I did. So I mean,
I was going to say, by the way, there's a guy in chat. He's been a Sound Like Thunder. He had commented a few. He's the 5th guy in our little team that plays games together. It's Ross.
Cool. Ross, yep.
Oh, Ross. Yeah, I've seen him on your channel.
He's a big ACW guy.
Yep.
Well, I like I like all. I mean, I know Kev Sharp and Nate Rogers and Mo, and I know you guys are all my kind of people. So I love talking to you guys. But you guys are. I think when I come watching your show, Hexy, I know I'm going to talk about I'm going to see the American Civil War. So it's great.
I was going to tell you too. So these guys they know that I don't like naval games. I own one, but because it was given to me. I don't like aircraft games other than providing close air support or fighter cover in a campaign battle on the ground somewhere. But I will tell you this, and I pulled it out the other day and was sort of rummaging through it. Your big Pacific game. And you guys out there in chat, you're going to hear me say it. I've said it once before. That game somehow is going to get on my table. I am going to play that one way or another.
So you live, obviously, I mean, by the way, I find it I just want to make a comment. You were born and raised in West Virginia?
No, I grew up in Northern Virginia.
Oh, Northern Virginia. Okay.
Leesburg.
So I always find interesting, when guys from West Virginia say, like, I don't know much about the Union. I keep going, that you were a Union state, right?
You mean, as McMurray tells me, oh, that's right. You now live in Best Virginia.
I mean,
I live in Falling Waters, so I'm just above Martinsburg. So I'm in.
I know where Martinsburg. So you're really out towards the mountains.
Yeah, we're right at the bottom of them.
Well, I mean, not in the mountains, but you're right at the foothills. Yep. I know where Martinsburg is. Yeah, I've been out there. I mean, I've only been to Martinsburg maybe once in my life, but I've been out that way long ago.
Well, I tell everybody, I can walk out my front door and within 5-mile radius, there's probably 50 Civil War skirmish markers or, stuff like that. They're just all over. And some are well taken care of. We just had to move one, as a matter of fact, on Route 11 up here by a Walmart. They were expanding the roadway and they had a Stonewall Jackson marker up there and they had to actually pick that marker off, parcel off a very small footprint of land and move that marker. I think they had to move it like 6 feet.
Right, but it had to be. Look, I appreciate progress. I appreciate people not being stuck in traffic. I get all that, but you don't have to burn all the history to the ground, right?
No, what's that old saying?
When I for many years I lived in, I worked in Washington for decades. I worked out of the Pentagon, and there's a place called Rockville Pike, and down Rockville Pike, I was driving my car and I just, this was years, decades ago, and I see like one of those, those markers, what they look like, that plaque, and it's got a certain, bronzy look with the background.
and it was in a very awkward place. But one time it was near my dog's vet. So one time I was at the vet, I walked like the 300 or 400 yards back to Rockville Pike where you couldn't stop a car. And it was where Jeb Stewart captured the wagon train. It was right in that spot. Yeah. So I've been to that location. But like I said, because of where the marker was and where, it's a bit of a major road. It was right on a curve. You couldn't just pull your car over and look at it and not cause an accident. So, but the vet was like, when you made the right, the vet was like on the other side of this, rise. So it was about a 400-yard walk. But I remember I was took the dog and they said they needed a dog for us. I'm going to take a walk back and see what the hell that marker says. And that's when I discovered it was where that wagon train, which played a big role in the Gettysburg campaign,
Oh yeah,
he was dragging those goddamn wagons around, slowed them down.
We'll go ahead and we'll make the standard announcement that I said we had to do in every show because
October
about Gettysburg. So we had a little this past May.
Yeah, so I saw your show about it.
Yeah, well, they came out, had a great time. I think McMurray went there as a kid. Todd's never seen anything like that. We just had a blast for 4 days. Well, we're going to do it again. And we've been telling all the viewers, we're not scheduling some big week-long thing. We're going to go up for one day. I know that camp's coming down. I know that Ross is coming out.
What is the date?
October 19th. We're scheduling it way out so people have time. It's a Monday with a washout day of Wednesday the 21st next year. And we're just going to one day on the battlefield. Anybody
I will, you know what? I'm going to stick that I'll put it in my brain. But I will tell you, I don't know if you knew this. I was on the board of the Gettysburg Museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, so I got the opportunity for 3 years. In my seat at the table, to my left was a guy named Jim McPherson, and to my right was Gary Gallagher.
Oh my God!
Nice.
Very nice. Got to talk to them. Oh my God, that was so great. That was the best part of the whole job.
Well, Alan's just recently had his bump ins with Gary Edelman.
Yeah, I was up for the book fest down there because I'm part of ABT.
Yeah, I love when people tell me like they think they understand the lost cause, and I said, well, I everything I know about the lost cause I got from Gary. Kind of the main proponent of that thing. And by the way, going on a bike tour with Jim McPherson around the first day battlefield is just a fucking joy.
Oh, that's
I can imagine.
I'll have days where I get in my car and maybe just take a day off from work. And I'll drive. It's only an hour and 5, hour and 10 minutes for me, but I'll drive up there and I'll go stand in one spot. And the first day is obviously I love the first day. And I'll just go up there. Maybe I'll go up on Oak Hill. I'll look around. I'll get my car and I'll go home.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I had, I was working in a unit and I had a lot of veterans, working for me. Great guys, a lot of the cards in Fire the Lake are inspired by these guys, by the way. And there was this colonel, his name was Bob. I don't remember his last name, but his name is definitely Bob. So Bob comes back, and Bob was a big fan of Gettysburg, right? So Bob comes to me one day in my office. He goes, "I got this rock for you." I go, "Oh, thank you." And it's a piece of that, that kind of granite they had at Gettysburg, that white granite. I said, "Well, Bob, that's very kind of you. Thank you for this rock." He goes, No, you don't understand. See this rock I just gave you? Chamberlain ordered the bayonet charge when he was standing on this rock. And I said, "Okay." And I said, "How do you know?" They goes, "The rock told me." When an army colonel's gaslighting you, it's really kind of funny. But I still have the rock because you just don't know. Just don't know.
When I used to live in the barracks, like especially at Fort Drum, whenever we would have like a major inspection where our squadron commander or the division or whatever, I would always, I'm senior NCO, so I had my own room. I would always go into my closet, and the game I would use was Lee versus Grant, and I would sit it on my desk. And every time one of those big officers, the West Pointers, would come in, they wouldn't look at that. Not that they were going to anyhow as a senior, but they would see that game and we would talk about the game. And you into this? I never have to worry about anything inspection wise, but it always works.
Interesting revelation. We were talking about various generals. The thing that's who Eric Lee Smith is. He did the victory games.
Great guy. I've been seeing him the last few years. I've seen him out in the West Coast when I go to that SD HISCON. And Eric, I was reading Army of the Potomac by Catton again for this particular project. And he decided to get a group together to, like a book club, but not a club. We did just that one book series of 3 books. So we got together, we're talking. And the revelation I got out of reading it for I think it's the 5th time I've been reading this thing over my lifetime. I realized that, McDowell at the first Bull Run was a major in the U.S. Army, and now all of a sudden he's general in charge of an army. McClellan was a retired captain, and he becomes general of all the Union armies. These guys, when you look at the Fair Oaks battle, these guys, nobody was the Lee had been a colonel barely. Albert Sidney Johnson was a colonel of the 2nd Dragoons. They didn't have, all the generals were more or less kind of too old. I mean, you had, they were. They were
was a big guy.
They didn't last. Patterson was a general, but he sucked, and he was gone after the Bull Run campaign. So you have guys that were basically majors, captains, majors, and barely lieutenant colonel, not even any of those, but basically captains and majors all of a sudden becoming major generals with nothing in between and no experience. And so when you look at some of these actions, you have to realize these guys, that's why they get better as the war gets on, because they're getting training. They just didn't know what to do. They've never had that many. I mean, if you're a captain in the U.S. Army in those days, you might have had, a company or maybe 2 companies under your command out in the West somewhere at some fort, right? That's what you would have been in charge of. Now, all of a sudden, you've got, 35, 50,000 guys. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do with that? You have no idea.
OJT, baby, OJT.
Well, that's right. But the first experiences are kind of like roll the dice,
Yeah.
It can be anything.
That's it. It's, I don't, if you don't get into, you can learn what some of these guys did in Mexico.
Yeah.
Brave
lieutenants.
Yeah. And then I guess, I don't know when a lot of the Indian fighting and stuff or the out West stuff came in, but you get some stories about those guys there. But it's amazing to see. I mean, you can just watch the change in the chain of command. And I'm going to say at the higher scales, probably more so on the Union side, because I would love to have been a fly on the wall when Lincoln's deciding every time who's going to be in charge. And I love the story about right before Gettysburg with offered it to this, to Reynolds, offered it, and they said no, and he just said, "Fuck it, Meade, you're taking it."
Well, actually, he had been rebuffed by so many people. Meade was not given a choice.
Yeah,
that was a direct order from the president.
You're it, buddy.
Yeah, remember that's 5 days before Gettysburg.
Yeah, and was it a good choice? I mean, I'm going to say yeah.
Well, so there's this guy. I just got the book. I read it. It's called Meade at Gettysburg. And what was interesting about this book, because this guy's when you read a historian, you got to say, what's the guy's angle? And this guy's a real, the angle, whether he took the angle, he's resurrecting Meade's reputation. It was kind of like how he took the angle on the book. That's fine. I mean, everybody's got an interpretation. And he said that the real plan, the Pipe Creek, everybody, and, people talk about, Meade wanted to retreat, all this stuff. But what he puts together, which is kind of interesting way to think about it, is his plan was that Reynolds was going to go forward, mix it up with Lee, and then fall back to drag Lee into the open. So he was coming towards Pipe Creek. So it was a feint, and it just didn't work out that way. But that was the original plan. So all the discussion about Meade wanting to retreat was part of the original operational plan. It wasn't that he was afraid of Lee. It was that he was trying to drag Lee into a situation where Lee would be he wanted Lee to attack him. See, they all figured out by this point in the war that you don't want to be the attacker. You want to be the attacked.
Well, and Meade must have, primarily 5 days before. All right, he's 5th Corps commander, and all of a sudden, at the end of June, he is now in charge of Army Potomac. And I don't never see a lot of people, then again, I don't read a lot of that, but I never see a lot of people discussing the maneuvers that he placed on those wings to get them at least to where they were right before Gettysburg happened. I mean, it seems to me that they were all in a semicircular location around where it ended up being.
That was because when Meade got the command, the one order the one direct order from the president, Lincoln, was that he could do whatever he wanted, but he had to cover Baltimore and Washington.
Yeah.
So he's moving on the inside of this clock, and Lee was moving, and Lee's plan was to, he was trying to knock out, Harrisburg and, York, he was trying to grab those places and drag the Union into a battle that, they wouldn't be good at. Now, one of the problems that this Meade at Gettysburg talks about is that Meade there's a place called Winchester, Maryland, right?
Sure.
And that's the real end of the rail line in that area. And he had talked to Herman Hout, who was the head of the railroads, and they turned that and Meigs, who was the quartermaster general, they had turned West Winchester into a major supply depot. Remember, he's got about 85,000 guys, and 85,000 guys eat a lot of food, and got 100,000 horses and mules.
Winchester, Maryland, or Winchester, Virginia?
No,
Maryland.
Maryland.
Okay.
Winchester, Maryland is. So, eventually they finished the railroad from Winchester to Gettysburg. That's how Lincoln got to the Gettysburg Address in November. Well, prior to that, the railroad didn't quite go through.
Okay. I'm looking at it from the Confederate perspective.
No. Yeah.
I got okay.
No,
okay.
This is Winchester, Maryland, and that was turned into a supply depot. So and that was to supply the Pipe Creek position, and he was supposed to get Lee to come after him. Blah blah blah. But so when he had to jump forward to Gettysburg, the supplies he wasn't really prepared to move all the supplies there because it wasn't set up that way. So that created a lot of supply problems for the Union at Gettysburg.
That's funny how two towns named Winchester in two different states played a key
role.
It's
not, remember all this stuff comes from like England, these are all old places.
How many Springfields are
East
across
Coast is old.
state?
The East Coast is the original 13 colonies. So, it's got a lot of, you got York, York is like in England, you got New York. That's New York, it's all English names dragged over here.
Jumping back to Meade for a minute, the other thing with Meade, of course, he was a West Pointer. I mean, you mentioned West Point for Mark, which is a big thing, and I think Lincoln, that's where I'm going with this. Lincoln wanted to get back to that kind of professional type of units in there because there was a lot of infighting in there, and I think that's mentioned because I read that that Meade book you were talking about there.
Good
and
book.
Yeah, it's a very good book because Meade himself, there's so much infighting in there between them and the others. Him and Hooker, they really never got along as when they were corps commanders either. And there was kind of this little clique between Hooker and other ones, aka Dan Sickles, that kind of disliked the West Pointers and vice versa. So there's a lot of interplay there. And I think with Meade coming in, he just wanted to kind of, hey, I got to take this over. I just don't want to lose type of mentality. Yeah. I just, I'm taking over. I just don't want to screw it up.
Yeah, although, and again, in that book, it covers it. There was some concept of a plan to launch an offensive if the attack failed on the third day and on the fourth day. But, they had taken, remember, in 3 days, 50,000 casualties, each side taking about 25,000 casualties. There's a lot of guys, the army is not, resilient. And then when he chases them down to the Potomac, he's in a parallel route. I mean, these guys are marching day and night. I mean, people get tired, that's one of the things about the 1864 campaign. These guys were, they literally marched, for a month and fought in between. They got no sleep. There were times they didn't get a lot of food. They would go a couple of days without rations because the wagons had to catch up, and they got into battles, but they were short of ammunition because the wagons weren't where they were supposed to be, or weren't where they would be useful. It's a mess.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. That I can't, I'm thinking of, as a scout in the service, some of the long range stuff I would do, but you know what? There's no way that we can touch that type of physical endurance. Well, look, it's been an hour and 45 minutes, Mark. Man, I do appreciate you coming on with this.
Oh, I was sitting. I'm at my daughter's house. I've been babysitting all day. I changed 2 diapers, and I mean real diapers. So believe me, this has been a pleasure.
I was going to say that's harder than designing a game.
I got to tell you something. The child is adorable. smart. I mean, I literally was sitting there looking at something, and I hear, oh, here's Earth. I look up, and she's got a geography program with the whole planet on it. She's 2 years old. She knows she's on the planet Earth and there's a lot of water. I mean, she's figured that out already. And she's working this computer and she's blowing it up. And I'm going like, what the fuck? I couldn't even. She's a very cool little kid to hang out with. But wow. I mean, look out, world. I won't be here to see it. But look at anyway. But the thing I want to like I said, play the game as much and what I'll get you when I get the final playbook, which I'll have shortly. I'll get you a copy of that that you can use with Alan. And the Vassal set's not going to get upgraded, but it's also not going to change much.
Right.
There's been a couple of minor changes in the counters, but again, the number of counters is right. So the couple of names have changed. It means nothing to anything. But you might find some discrepancies in the playbook to the counters because, this is one of those things. So the month campaign early on, I decided that Stevens. Good example. Stevens. Thank you very much, Danny. But my wife doesn't think so. But Stevens was the head of a division, and like between Wilderness and Spotsylvania, he was on a tree and he got shot by a sniper and killed. And they bring Crittenden from the West, who was the 21st Corps commander of that lost battle of Chickamauga, to become the division commander. So the guy goes from commanding a corps to all of a sudden he's got like a 2,500 person division, which was badly depleted. When I did the game, I was like, I don't want to keep changing the names of the goddamn counters. It doesn't matter. But the proofreaders there were so many of the proofreaders were like, screaming. I said, okay, fine. So I changed So Stevens and Crittenden got changed a little bit. I updated him in later scenarios. It's just like, okay. But so that's what won't match the Vassal set. But the number of pieces and where they go is exactly right. So you might see some discrepancies from the final playbook, but it's in the noise. Numbers are right. It works out great.
One thing about this little thing we built is with me and Wardrobe McMurray. We've been together for a while, and then Alan here coming along with us at Ross. And these guys, one thing that is these guys are a blessing to me, and Todd's the same way too. But Todd and I, we both don't have any problem with fumbling through games, making mistakes and just moving on. But Alan and Ross, these guys are like freaking. Their brains are like computers. They tend to hold. Alan can. I think honestly, he can read a rule book one time, and I think he knows almost everything.
Well, smarter than I am, that's for sure.
But it's so he and I will definitely get after. We're going to start doing some stuff on Thursday nights. I'm on call this week. Thank God they've left me alone tonight. My phone hasn't gone off because believe me, you'll hear it 3 states away.
What are you like? Work at a hospital or something?
Well, no, I'm a county IT guy, but my forte is geographic information stuff, 911 mapping. But since I'm still an IT guy, I still go through the on-call rotation. And sure enough, I swear to God, the girls over at 911, they know my schedule when I'm on call and they break something. It never fails, and I got to go in. But yeah, it's no big deal. It gets me out of the house. But they left me alone tonight, and that's been a good thing. And for all y'all out there, Army of the Potomac, on its way to the printer already or getting ready to go to the printer?
It'll go in. I have to see the final playbook. It has 5 corrections in it. I just got to make sure the 5 corrections got made. And
right.
Then,
so you guys
then it takes about a week of Charlie and the gang they have to make these special digital masters that go to China for the actual print. They have, it's got all these special marks and color code, stuff that you don't need so they can print it. So that takes about a week. So my before New Year's Eve, it'll be in China. That's how I look at it.
Okay. So everybody get over to GMT, get the thing pre-ordered. We're following up to Rebel Fury. And, like I said, I've not touched Rebel Fury, but I mess with this. You all can see it just in the Vassal. You can picture how good the game's going to look. Something ACW, a little easier to deal with. You're not digging way, way deep in the trenches, but it seems to me that the rules are enough and well established to give you this maneuver side of ACW, okay? And without having to cram. And when you get the rule book, he's got a lot of great little pretty pictures in there with demos of how to do things. So when you see the rule book, like I'm holding the rule book in my hand, it's not extremely thick. And a good part of that is nice pictures and a nice there's some write-ups and stuff in there. Now the playbook's a little thicker. because it's got some good stuff in it. A lot of good. He just didn't do like 2 paragraphs of designer notes. There's a whole bunch of pages, and there was some good stuff in there. So thank all y'all for coming on. Mark, really appreciate you doing this with us tonight, and hopefully we can do some more stuff again, because I got a feeling we could bullshit for hours about things and stuff. So
hey, I'm around. And, I'm an old man with no life, so just call me whenever.
Everybody have a good evening. Go watch some college football. I need to catch up on who's winning the bowl games tonight, or the championship.
Is it Ohio and somebody was playing tonight, right?
Yeah, that's what the guys were talking about earlier. The Big Ten. Ohio.
Ohio. I don't know. I saw Ohio was on, but I didn't see what they're playing.
Yeah, I'll go. You know what I'll do? I'll lay in bed tonight, turn on YouTube, and catch all the highlights of who did what. So, all right, everybody have a great evening. Thanks for showing up. Everybody hit that thumbs up. You know the deal, and keep your eyes open. We got more stuff coming on, and we'll talk to y'all later. See you.